Please believe me. I am innocent. How can I do such a thing to our little baby? Felix cried to his wife Gloria as the police took him away. Felix and Gloria had never felt luckier in their lives. After years of dreaming, praying, and working tirelessly, they finally secured their U.S. visas. The news came like a blessing. For a couple from Nigeria, this was a ticket to a better future, and they celebrated with family and friends, full of excitement about what lay ahead. When they first arrived in the U.S., everything was new and exciting. The busy streets, the towering buildings, the different accents, and, of course, the weather, so cold compared to the heat they were used to. But it didn't matter. They were together, and they were here to build a better life. Things were perfect at first. They were thrilled to welcome their daughter, baby Grace. Felix, you won't believe it. She just opened her eyes for the first time today. Look, Gloria said, her voice full of excitement as she held their tiny daughter in her arms. Felix stood beside her, his face beaming with pride. Ah, my child is finally seeing the world. Baby Grace, you are my joy, my world, he said, his Nigerian accent showing his pride. For the first few months, everything felt perfect, but the reality of parenthood soon set in. Felix, who had grown up in Nigeria, had never imagined that he would be staying home to care for a child. In Nigeria, men worked and women cared for the home and children, but in the U.S., things were different. With no family around to help and not being able to afford a professional babysitter, he found himself taking on the role of a stay-at-home dad when Gloria went to work. Is this really my life now? Felix sighed one day, looking down at baby Grace as she giggled and waved her tiny hands. Gloria, getting ready for work, glanced at him with a smile. This is our life now. You'll get used to it. But how am I supposed to manage all of this? Felix grumbled. I never imagined that I would be washing diapers, cleaning bottles, and changing her. It's a lot of work. Gloria laughed softly, though her eyes were tired from working long hours. Being a parent means sharing everything. We both have to do our part. You'll get the hang of it, don't worry. He shook his head. In Nigeria, men don't babysit like this. My brothers would laugh at me if they saw me doing all of this. They'd say, Felix, this is a woman's job. But here it's different. Gloria smiled and walked over, giving him a kiss on the cheek. We're not in Nigeria anymore, and being a father means doing what's best for your child. You're doing great. We're a team. Felix smiled, though he wasn't entirely convinced. The next day, he found himself still unsure as he rocked baby Grace in his arms, trying to get her to sleep. He looked around at the apartment they had made their home and sighed. He had to adjust to this new reality. As the days passed, they fell into a routine. Felix would wake up early, prepare breakfast, and then care for baby Grace while Gloria went to work. When she returned home, they would switch, Felix heading off to his part-time job as a mechanic while Gloria took over the baby care. They shared the responsibility as best they could, supporting each other through the challenge. It was a regular morning, one that Felix could have never anticipated would turn into the worst day of his life. He had woken up early as usual, prepared breakfast, and seen Gloria off to work with a kiss. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that made baby Grace's little sounds all the more precious. Felix had spent a few hours with her, playing, feeding, and making sure she was comfortable. She was his world, his pride. But that morning something was wrong. Felix had stepped out for a moment, only to come back and find his daughter lying on the floor of their room, lifeless. Her body was cold, her tiny face pale. Panic surged through him like a tidal wave. He rushed to her side, heart pounding in his chest. Baby Grace, no, 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 please! He scooped her up, his hands trembling as he checked for a pulse. His daughter wasn't moving. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. The terrifying thought raced through his mind. What had happened? His first instinct was to call 911. The dispatcher's calm voice on the phone barely registered in his panic. I need an ambulance. My baby, she's not breathing. She's not moving. His voice cracked, desperate. The operator reassured him as they dispatched help, but time seemed to stretch endlessly as he waited for paramedics to arrive, doing his best to keep his daughter safe, praying for a miracle. When the paramedics finally arrived, they worked quickly to revive baby Grace, their professionalism contrasting with his frantic, helpless state. After what felt like forever, they managed to stabilize her, but she was rushed to the hospital. Felix barely remembered the drive to the hospital, his mind still reeling. He felt as though his world was slipping away, like the ground beneath him was crumbling. When Gloria arrived at the hospital, she was met by police officers waiting outside. Their faces were grim, and they stopped her before she could even reach Felix. "Ma'am, you need to come with us," one of the officers said. "There's been an allegation against your husband." Gloria froze. "What do you mean? What's happening?" "Your husband is under investigation for child abuse," the officer said coldly. Gloria's heart stopped. "What? No, this can't be true. What are you talking about?" The officer's expression didn't change. "We have reason to believe that your child may have been harmed." Inside the hospital, Felix sat in a chair, his face pale, his hands shaking. His mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. His world had been turned upside down, and now the police were accusing him of something he couldn't even fathom. Gloria entered the room, her face filled with confusion and worry. She looked at him, her eyes searching for some explanation. "Felix," she whispered, her voice breaking, They're saying you hurt her." Felix looked at her, his heart sinking.
Gloria, I didn't do anything. I swear to you, I didn't. I found her like that. I called the police for help. I love her. I would never hurt her."
But Gloria wasn't listening, her face twisted in pain and disbelief.
"How did this happen, Felix? How? Why would they say such a thing? Why would they accuse you of something so horrible?"
Felix's eyes filled with tears.
"I don't know, dear. I don't know how this happened. I would never hurt her, never."
But Gloria stepped back, her face filled with doubt.
"But how do I know you're telling the truth? I wasn't there, Felix. I don't know what happened when I was gone. I don't know anymore."
Her voice cracked as the weight of the situation sank in. The police had already begun their investigation. They had checked baby Grace's body and found signs that they interpreted as abuse. The evidence, though circumstantial, was enough to make an accusation.
"I can't believe this. How could this happen to us? How could this happen to you?"
Felix could only shake his head, his heart breaking. Gloria,
I swear on my life, I didn't do this. I didn't hurt our baby."
the doubt in Gloria's eyes was like a dagger to his chest. It was a blow he wasn't prepared for. His wife, his partner, the mother of his child, was now looking at him as if he might be capable of something unthinkable. Outside the hospital, the police had already taken action. Felix was arrested, his hands cuffed behind his back, his world crumbling around him. The thought that someone, especially Gloria, might believe he could hurt their daughter filled him with despair. As the police took him away, Felix looked at Gloria one last time. His heart broke as she stood there, her face a mixture of confusion, pain, and disbelief. He couldn't understand how things had gone so terribly wrong, how his own wife could doubt him.
"No, darling, please believe me. I am innocent. How can..."
Pleaded, his voice barely audible as the officers let him out. But she couldn't say anything. She only watched, helpless, as the love of her life was taken away in handcuffs, accused of something that tore at the very fabric of their family. The days that followed felt like a blur for both Felix and Gloria. Felix was still reeling from the shock of the arrest and the accusations, while Gloria was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, fear, confusion, anger, and, most painfully, betrayal. After speaking with her mother, Gloria felt a knot tighten in her chest. Her mother's words had lingered in her mind long after the call ended. "Gloria, I've never trusted that man. There's something about him. Don't you see? Now this happens. The truth is coming out." Her mother's voice echoed in her ears as she stood in their apartment, staring at the empty space around her. What was she supposed to believe? Could it really be true? Was Felix capable of harming their daughter? The seed of doubt had been planted, and now it grew with each passing hour. Gloria had always respected her mother's judgment, but now she wasn't sure. It was so hard to reconcile the loving husband she had known with the man accused of such a horrific crime. How could her mother have been right all along? How could she have missed the signs? Her mind raced back to the moments before everything changed. The late nights when Felix had struggled to balance taking care of baby Grace and doing his best to support her. Could he have been hiding something beneath that exhaustion? Something darker? The evidence gathered by the authorities seemed to confirm her worst fears. The doctors had found signs of abuse on baby Grace's body. Though they were not explicit, there were enough bruises and marks to raise alarm. The medical report stated that baby Grace's injuries were consistent with a sexual assault. The world as she knew it came crashing down with every word that was read aloud to her. Gloria found herself pacing the apartment, unable to sit still. Her heart ached as she looked at the crib where baby Grace once slept peacefully. How could she have missed something? Why didn't she see the warning signs? Felix, still in police custody, was granted a public defender, a lawyer who had little experience with cases like his. The young woman, a beautiful and sharp legal professional named Cindy, was assigned to his case. She believed in his innocence and made it her mission to uncover the truth. From the moment she laid eyes on him, she knew that he was not the type of man who would harm his own child. There was something genuine about him, despite the circumstances. "I know you're innocent, Mr. Felix," Cindy said during one of their meetings, her voice soft but confident. "I'm going to do everything I can to find the truth." But the facts were against them. The doctor's report was damning, and every detail of baby Grace's injuries pointed toward abuse. Yet Felix insisted that he had nothing to do with it. "I swear, Cindy, I don't know what happened to my daughter. I woke up and she was on the floor. I called for help immediately. How can you not believe me?" Cindy listened carefully, taking in every word, but even she couldn't ignore the evidence. There were inconsistencies in Felix's story, especially regarding the timeline. She knew that Felix's version of events didn't fully align with the physical evidence. But Cindy wasn't ready to give up on him just yet. She would dig deeper, uncover every detail, no matter how long it took. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Gloria's anger had reached its peak. The pain she felt from the accusation, the isolation, and the pressure from her mother was overwhelming. She could no longer bear the sight of Felix. The man she had loved, the father of her child, was now a stranger to her. The doubt that had settled in her heart was impossible to shake. After spending a sleepless night pacing around the apartment, Gloria finally packed her things. The anger bubbling inside her was too strong to ignore. She could no longer stand to be in the same space as Felix, not with the accusations hanging over him like a shadow. Without a word, she left. Her heart was heavy as she walked out the door, her thoughts filled with confusion. She couldn't bring herself to face him. The pain of possibly losing her daughter, coupled with the betrayal she felt, was too much to bear. The mystery of what had happened to baby Grace slowly began to unravel, but not without great difficulty. Felix's lawyer, Cindy, had been working tirelessly to find the truth. She was convinced that he was innocent, but the evidence pointed in the other direction. There were too many inconsistencies, too many doubts. However, Cindy wasn't willing to give up on him. One afternoon, as she went through the files again, she discovered something strange. A security camera, hidden in the corner of the apartment building's hallway, had caught a moment that would change everything. The footage had been overlooked in the initial investigation, but Cindy, with a keen eye, noticed something peculiar on the video. An unfamiliar woman entering the building. It was Miss Joyce, Gloria's colleague and friend from her office. Cindy was shocked. Joyce had never been mentioned in the investigation. She quickly obtained the footage from the building's security and watched it in full. The video showed Joyce entering the apartment building late that morning, around the time when baby Grace was found unconscious. She moved quietly down the hallway, her face a mask of calm, before disappearing into the apartment. The most startling part of the video was the moment when she left the apartment, looking around cautiously, as if she didn't want to be seen. Cindy's heart raced. She knew she had found something crucial. She rushed to the police station and demanded that the footage be reviewed again. When the video was shown to the officers, the realization hit them like a ton of bricks. Joyce had been in the apartment, and there was no other explanation for how baby Grace had been injured except that she had been the one to do it. The investigation into Joyce deepened. It was discovered that she had harbored jealousy and resentment towards Gloria for months. They had become friends when they worked together, but over time, Joyce grew envious of Gloria's life. She hated hearing Gloria brag about her perfect husband and beautiful baby Grace. Joyce felt overlooked and bitter, believing that Gloria had everything that she wanted. On the fateful day, Joyce had gone to their apartment under the guise of visiting her friend, but with a much darker purpose. Felix, unaware of the woman who slipped into the room. Joyce had seen the opportunity, and in a quiet, calculated move. Then she turned her attention to baby Grace. In a fit of jealousy and rage, Joyce had assaulted the innocent child, leaving her with the bruises and injuries that would ultimately cause the investigation to spiral into the nightmare that had befallen Felix and Gloria. The police arrested Joyce immediately after the footage was reviewed. When confronted with the evidence, Joyce broke down in tears, confessing to the crime. She explained how the jealousy had consumed her and how she had allowed her hatred to drive her to such unspeakable actions. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she sobbed, her face contorted with regret. I couldn't stand seeing Gloria so happy. She always had everything I wanted. I'm so sorry." The confession came as a shock to Gloria, who had always seen Joyce as a close friend. When she heard the news, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Joyce had been the one to hurt their daughter? The realization shattered her, and she felt a deep, overwhelming shame. It wasn't just the betrayal of friendship, it was the betrayal of her own instincts. She had trusted someone who had hated her for everything she had. Meanwhile, baby Grace was discharged from the hospital. She was awake, but the trauma had left its mark on her. The doctors reassured Gloria that the baby would be fine, but Gloria's heart ached with the knowledge of what had happened. She had failed to protect her child, and it was hard to live with that guilt. Weeks later, Felix had become friends with Cindy. She had supported him throughout the ordeal, offering both legal counsel and emotional strength. Cindy had become a trusted ally, and in the quiet moments when they shared coffee, she encouraged him to move forward, to heal. "You have to forgive her, Felix," Cindy said gently one afternoon as they sat in the small coffee shop near the courthouse. "For the sake of your daughter, for your family, you can't keep carrying this burden of anger. I know it hurts, but forgiveness is the only way forward." Felix stared at his cup, his thoughts distant. He had spent so many sleepless nights thinking about what had happened. The anger he felt toward Gloria was overwhelming. She hadn't trusted him. She hadn't believed in his innocence. But in the quiet moments, he realized that forgiveness was the only way he could rebuild their life, for their daughter's sake.
I don't know if I can forgive her. She didn't trust me when I needed her the most. I don't know if I can forget that.
Cindy nodded, her eyes understanding.
Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, Felix. It means letting go of the anger so you can heal. For your baby's future, for your own peace of mind, you need to try.
Felix remained silent, the weight of his emotions still heavy on his heart. But Cindy's words resonated with him. He needed to forgive, for his daughter, for his family. Days later, Gloria came to Felix, her eyes red from crying. She stood in the doorway, unsure of how to begin. The shame of what she had done, of not trusting him, crushed her. She had lost so much, and now she feared losing the man she loved forever. "I'm so sorry, Felix," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I should have trusted you. I should have believed you." Felix stood in the doorway, his face hard. "You didn't trust me when I needed you the most, Gloria. That hurt me more than anything." Gloria fell to her knees, sobbing. "Please. I was wrong. I was scared, and I let the fear control me. I didn't know what to think, but I should have known you. Please forgive me, for baby Grace's sake, for us." Felix stood there silent. His heart was torn and the anger still lingered. But there was something else too, a deep, painful love for the woman who had once been his partner in everything. He sighed heavily, finally stepping forward.
I'll never forget what you did, but for baby Grace's sake, I'll try to forgive you. We have to move forward.
It was a small step, but it was enough. Their journey toward healing had just begun, and while forgiveness wasn't easy, it was the only way they could rebuild their family and move on from the darkness that had nearly torn them apart. And with that, they both knew that their story wasn't over yet. They had a long road ahead, but they would walk it together for the sake of their daughter and their future. Hello, friends. Thanks for watching till the end. Do you think Felix did the right thing by forgiving Gloria, his wife? Was it easy for him? Or did he have valid reasons to be upset for not being trusted? What would you have done if you were in Felix's shoes? Would you have forgiven your partner? Or would the betrayal be too much to overcome? Do you think Gloria's actions were understandable given the circumstances? Or did she cross a line by doubting him? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. We'd love to hear from you.